Well, hello from Emerald Hills Skies. We're here on the outskirts of Louisville, Kentucky at Emerald Hills, and you know, it's a very bright night. I was just going to check and see what our moon is. I think it is at literally 100%. So we've got an absolute full moon tonight, but we're going to try to make the most of this as we can. Tonight, we figured that since we had the full moon, we would try to make it open cluster night. And the way we thought we'd try to do this is just see how many clusters we thought we could pick up in one night. So what I've done is in the description below, I've put the list of open clusters that we'd like to tackle. All of these open clusters are taken from the Herschel 400 Observing Guide that Steve O'Meara put together. It's from the Herschel list of deep space objects. And it's kind of a special list because William Herschel discovered these objects, and what O'Meara did is kind of describe them as he went. If you've seen our observatory, you already know it's a Pier-Tech 2. It's a Tele-Station 2, and it's got the roll-off roof, and then it has the Pier-Tech Adjustable-Height pier. And our iOptron CEM70G mount sits on top of that. And on top of that, we've got this RASA, 11-inch RASA telescope. And this RASA 11-inch is special because it doesn't even have an eyepiece. It has a camera up front. And this is like the business end. This is the part that looks up in the sky. So you can see that ZWO ASI2600MC Pro Astrocam there, one-shot color camera. It's mounted on an Octopi-Astro camera interface, which is mounted to the corrector plate, and the whole thing then swirls around in the sky and aims at hopefully whatever we pointed at wanting to see, courtesy of that black mount that it's sitting on, a very precise astronomy mount on top of that adjustable height pier. And on top of the telescope, we have this little outrigger device with an ASI 178. It's the 178 monochrome camera, and there behind it are two little blue boxes, the power box, Pegasus Astro power box, micro power box, and also the Pegasus Astro USB control hub there. And that rides on that little equipment plate, a little outrigger on top of the scope, and then at the base of the scope is this rig rack where all the power comes in, it gets converted to 12 volt, it gets distributed, and also it gets sent inside of here where I'm sitting in a little office about 200 feet from the observatory. Outside tonight, I gotta tell you, it is incredibly bright. This is a picture of the sky. It's illuminated by a moon that is incredibly bright, so bright that if you look at our observatory here, it looks like daylight out there. And our telescope is already pointed at the first object that we'd like to be able to see, and that object is none other than this open cluster. It's NGC 2281, right there in the center, NGC 2281. Now this is a sparse open cluster, if you ask me. It's not very It's not like incredibly packed, is it? But it is first on the list. So if you're following in the description tonight, you'll see that NGC 2281 is the first. We're going to try our best to look at these in real time without even live stacking tonight. So that'll hopefully save us some time. And also it'll allow us to be able to hop from one side to the next, 2281, without having to reset everything. 2281 on page 25. So I hope you'll stick with us and come along for the ride. And I just wonder, who do we have with us tonight that'll share your observing spot with us? It's a team sport. Who's with us tonight that'll tell us where you're observing from? Looks like we already have Ray. He's from out there in Arizona. There's Ken Allen. Join us. Ken, good to have you here. Dane, I think you're from up in Minnesota. And that balloon, boy, I wish we could have looked at that through our telescope. That would have been fun, wouldn't it? Good idea, Ray. All right, so we're going to just check this out real quick. 2281. Here we go. Open cluster in Auriga. And Omira writes that it's a bright, neglected open cluster. It's very pretty and bright, but doesn't have a lot of stars. Very loose. It's the surrounding Milky Way makes it difficult to judge the cluster's true extent. And I would say that's true. As you look at this picture, perhaps you can identify which is the cluster and which are the background stars. See, there's a central diamond. Can you make out the diamond? I guess that would be that, maybe? Or maybe all the way out to here? Or maybe all the way out to here. How about that? Central diamond. Omira says it's a mesmerizing cluster, and it's surrounded by a loose and coarse gathering of mixed suns that form various geometric patterns. Okay, so we're just going to start our observation here tonight, and we're going to say, see, I want to make sure that we got to add our session. And our session is from 10:30 until 12:30 a.m. And this is 106. Session 106 with 100% full moon. It's open cluster night. I thought about trying to serve everybody who would come tonight some kind of, I don't know, some kind of ice cream snack with, that Baskin-Robbins would call something or other cluster, I don't know. Or maybe I've heard of a candy bar called a Goo Goo cluster. I thought I should just pass those out to everybody that's here tonight, just to kind of celebrate. Anyway, I'm going to say sparse cluster, but bright stars. 4 stars and a diamond. Okay, now I'm going to do this differently tonight. Most of the time I've had our observing software, which is called Deep Sky Planner. I've had it set so that it automatically causes the object to vanish once we observe it. But tonight I'm going to try it differently. It's kind of annoyed me because I can't go back and look at what the object we just did because it always vanishes. So tonight I'm just going to use these check boxes. Once we've observed it, then that box will be checked. And that way it stays on the list and we can maybe see it a little easier. All right, so let's head to the next cluster, which is NGC 2266. And before I do that, I'm just going to make sure you guys are... There's Ken Allen from Mesa, Arizona. Ken says, looks like just space noise to me. Looks like the bright 4 in the middle. Oh, so right here then you're thinking, somewhere around here. Okay, we'll take your word for it, Azrael. I think you're right. Okay, let's through to the next one, which is going to be NGC 2266. NGC 2266. This is H216, NGC 2266, and the constellation Gemini. So you can see the scope. Astronomers call it slewing. I don't know why we can't just call it moving, but the scope is slewing there. And we also have this star chart here, Stellarium, which is like a planetarium software kind of. And we can get to that just by saying show chart, and it'll take us right to where the object is pointing. So let's come back to the screen now and kind of zero in here. Sure enough, NGC 2266 is right here, and that's roughly what we're going to see. We'll put our field of view up there so we can see what our telescope frame is. It's about 2 degrees by 1 1/4. So this is what we're looking for. This little cluster here looks like a bunch of diamonds, doesn't it? see. Let me just go to that again. Go to that again. Show chart. Show chart. There we are. Okay, so let's go look and see. Okay, we're going to do a plate solve because I don't see it right there anywhere. Plate solving, you guys have heard this a million times. It takes a picture of the sky that the telescope is seeing and compares it to the plates or copies of pictures that it has in its memory. And then it tries to figure out, wait a second, you're not really looking at the place where the guy wanted to go. And so then it figures out where to point the telescope in reality compared to what it's seeing in this portion of the sky. And that way it can make adjustments for maybe the alignment of the scope not being quite right tonight. We usually just do a rough polar alignment, and then we plate solve along the way. And this allows us to be able to find. Sure enough, there's that cluster right in the middle now. Let's see. Ricky, good to have you here from Florida. Chad, welcome aboard from Virginia. So here's this cluster here. It's kind of noisy, but that's because the moonlight. Let's take a look at where the moon is here. There it is. So the moon is pretty close here. Anytime we get within 20 degrees, it's going to be super, super polluted with moonlight. And we are about 40 degrees away. So that's about right. It looked like it was pretty bright. Then we've also got light pollution here in Louisville, Kentucky, but we do use a filter to try to get rid of that. And the filter is a Celestron filter that goes with the RASA. So this again is NGC 2266. Let's have a look at what NGC 2266. NGC 2266. And what we're doing now is looking these up in the back in O'Meara's index. 2266 is on page 72. Then we quickly turn to the page number, and that lets us kind of see what O'Meara said about each of these objects. Page 72, NGC 2266. It's a small and relatively faint open cluster, and it's a beautiful fan of dim suns whose northwestern edge tapers to a point. Northwestern edge tapers to a point. I guess that would be over on this edge, is that right? You think? Yeah, that must be this edge here. Tapers to a point. Kind of like an arrow pointing at something. The southeastern edge of the fan is a bright arc of about half a dozen suns. So that's this bright arc. Let's see. He says, the cluster's brightest stars form an obvious Y-shaped asterism around which swarms a very fuzzy halo of unresolved starlight. Where's the Y? Is that this? Oh, I see. These go ahead up this way, and that goes ahead that way, and then this is the bottom of the Y. Oh, that's pretty cool. 50 stars of 11th magnitude and fainter. Very nice sight given its isolated position, relative dim brightness. Well, that's kind of nice, isn't it? What do you guys think? Bokes, is that how I say that? B-O-W-K-S? Bokes 1. Hi from Australia. Love a bit of astronomy in the middle of the day. Yeah, for you. Chad, nice to still get some astronomy and cloudy and rainy there. Sorry, Chad. Don't forget the RASA's flipped left to right. Correct. I think I might have that actually. I think I have it flipped over here. Where is that? Under miscellaneous? Where do I have that? Pretty sure I have it fixed. Oh, flip. Yeah, I have it flipped already. So we're correcting for that. So we flip it in the software. SharpCap gives you a flipping correction, you could call it. You can flip horizontal or vertical or both. And we just flip it horizontally. My name's Doug, Ken, if you were asking me. My name's Doug, and it's good to have you aboard. Jessica, great to have you here. Yep, thanks, Dane. All right, so that's NGC 2266. We'll add a quick observation of this. We'll say Omira called our attention to a Y asterism. An asterism is a shape of stars that's just, you know, observable to us, but it really isn't related to the object itself. So the Big Dipper is an asterism. We could see it. Lots of faint 11th magnitude stars. Nice cluster. Okay, so that checks the box on NGC 2266. Herschel viewed this as 21-6. That's what he called it. Okay, the next object we're going to is NGC 1931. So we'll slew to that. This is a bit different than the way we've done most of our nights. Most of the time we're live stacking things. And we're spending about 9 minutes or so, usually, on each object. But tonight, since it was 100% moonlight, and anything we try to zero in on is going to be pretty much polluted by that moonlight, we thought maybe we would try to look at open clusters tonight. And boy, we're kind of running behind on the Herschel list anyway. We have a bunch of these to knock off, and there were 37 open clusters we could do. So here we are, just to get kind of oriented. This is, I always do that, I forget and hold the control key down. This is the, we're looking now due west-southwest. And we're up almost the meridian. There's the meridian there. So you can see in the scope cam, look how high in the sky the scope is looking. And we're in the constellation Auriga. Auriga, and if you notice, Auriga has the star Capella, really bright star. And we're right here looking at, oh wow, we better live stack this one, folks. Let's change this to 20, well, first we better, wow, look at that. There's already something right there, isn't there? So I don't know if we need to plate solve or not. I think that might be our cluster there in the middle. I believe it is. Look at that. And it has a nebula around it. And the spider nebula is here. So what we're going to do is we're going to aim the scope right here in the middle of this. Well, I thought we were, but the controls for the scope do not, the telescope for the scope do not want, the mount controls for the scope don't want to come up. Well, that's bothersome. I wonder what has gone wrong with the, why can't we get the plugins, telescope control, configure, it's connected. It looks like that's all working okay. So why isn't the scope control coming up? Control 0. Now look, that's odd. I wonder if somehow it's right off of the edge. Oh, look at that. It was right off of the edge. That's crazy. No active devices. That's confusing, isn't it? Does that say disconnected? We're going to connect to it. Okay, so for some reason it was disconnected. Okay, now we're going to go back to this, and we're going to say right there is the star we want to, no, maybe right here. Or even right somewhere around here. And then we're going to say current object slew. And what that's going to do is we're going to now pull our field of view down. Did you see the RASA symbol moved there? And that way we can try to get in this spider nebula with this. And just to get an orientation of where we are in the night sky, once again, we're looking west, southwest. Okay, now let's set our exposure on 20 seconds. And let's set our gain on 100. And I'm going to make sure that we put in NGC 1930 here. Is that what we're on? NGC 1931, sorry. NGC 1931. NGC. Is this the cluster we were supposed to see? No, that's M36. So this cluster must be right here. And it's NGC 1931. Okay, so we're going to put NGC 1931 there, and then we're going to live stack. Let's pull this out. And let's reset our display histogram there. Jessica, good to have you on from Central Ohio. Ken, been with Emerald Hills since it started. Actually started with the organization in 1978, if you can believe that. We built Emerald Hills here at in 2006, I guess. We moved here in 2009. Dane, we're about more than halfway through the Herschel 400, so making good progress. And let's see, let's stretch this, auto stretch it, and then do a color balance, and then bring our blacks up to here, and then bring our lights up. Now, I'm hoping that we'll be able to see what we're seeing here. While that's live stacking, we're going to do a plate solve only, just so we can get one last look at this object. Larry Fraley from Peoria, Arizona, good to have you here. I hate clavin limb. Any thoughts on EAA with a go-to Altaz mount? It'll work fine. You know, just I guess exposures will be limited to like maybe what, 15 or 20 seconds before you get some drift on an Altaz, but we only do 20-second exposures anyway. Ken, how far is that cluster outside our system? You know, most open clusters are kind of residing in the Milky Way itself. So it's in the Milky Way, actually. The Fly Nebula, that's right. That's what we hope, Azray. Uncle Doug, it's always good to see you and to explore the skies with you. You're so nice. Jessica's my niece there. That's pretty cool. Good to have you here, Jessica. Let's see. So this object here is, I think, the actual cluster that we're trying to see. It's so tiny, isn't it? Let's see what O'Meara says about this. 1931. He covers these in an order that's designed for people who maybe are going through the whole year, and we just catch them as we can. I did it on page 25. So he has them in seasonal order. 1931. Yes, that is the correct cluster, 1931. It's a small but bright emission and reflection nebula near 5th magnitude Phi Aurigae. It's best seen with moderate to high magnifications. Yeah, we have a 2-degree field of view, so we don't have a real high magnification, but we have a wide aperture, so we kind of make up for it. It's a stellar, it almost appears stellar with a direct glance, with smaller magnifications. But if you use averted vision and concentrate, you'll see that it has a dense, nebulous quality. It begs for magnification. A magnification of 72 shows NGC 1931 is a beautiful 4 arc-minute wide stellar-like knot of nebulosity centered on a roughly 12th magnitude sun. Other dim companions can be glimpsed nearby, but they're distracting. The nebula takes magnification well, and at 105 power it appears more intense and obvious with a smooth, milky texture that gradually and briefly fades as you look outward from the bright core. That's all he says of it. So we'll do an observation here, and we're going to say this is a tiny open cluster, just 4 arc minutes wide with nebulosity. We started seeing the nebulosity at just 4 minutes of live stacking. Can you make it out there? It definitely took on a hydrogen alpha appearance, backlit. Beautiful, but tiny. You have to wonder if this has any nicknames, huh? We're going to go past our optical zoom and kind of look at it with our digital zoom just so we can see a little more of the structure. And let's pump up these mids a little more to see if we can brighten it up some. Sure enough, you can see all that hydrogen alpha cloud around it being lit up by those central suns, kind of backlit, right? If you use live stack with sharp cap, you do EAA. Yeah. That's beautiful. Okay, 5 minutes is all it took to see that. Now let's broaden out a little bit and see if in this field of view we also picked up that other nebula. We're picking up something over here. Look at that. So now that we've done our plate solve only, we should be able to use our deep sky image annotation. So here's NGC 1931. This is IC0417. What is that? Boy, I always forget to do that. I hold down the control key, and that Spider Nebula? Spider Nebula, H2 region. What is this? That's an open cluster, NGC 1907. That's not on our target list, so Herschel didn't see that, but we caught it, didn't we, in the corner of our frame. Let's go back to the live view. So here is NGC 1907, not on our observing list, and this is that entire Spider Nebula region. And I can't get our, oh, there we go. It's located at 2,700 light years. Has a, doesn't say its surface magnitude, but it's kind of like just a freebie tonight. We were here to see NGC 1931 up here, but we kind of get this Spider Nebula here for free, and we also picked up another nebula here, NGC 1907. I wonder if we can try to add that real quick. It's not on our list, but let's try to add it. And the way this works is we say NGC 1907, look up. Sure enough, there it is. We're going to add that. And then, okay, where'd it go? 1907. So we added it. Maybe it goes to the bottom of the list. No, I lost it. So we're going to do Control F maybe? Is that the way you look for these? How do you search for one of these things? GC 1907. Well, that's pretty. I tell you what, we're going to put it for a moment just in alphabetical order by common name. Well, it doesn't look like it added it. That's sad. Okay, we're going to try this again. See what happens here. Okay, so here's this search thing. NGC 1907. Look up. Okay, it's there. Observing Plan Object Editor. But it doesn't add it. I wonder if that's because the plan already contains it. I wonder if that's because maybe we need to run it and then put it back in altitude order. I am not seeing it. Well, I'll have to do some research on how these objects, when we add them on the fly like that, why it's not showing up. Anyway, let's take a look down here at our stacking. Kind of darken the sky a little bit and then brighten these nebula regions. Try to. Kind of faint, but you can make it out, although it's faint there, isn't it? An H2 ionized region, IC417. And we also picked up NGC 1907 on the side. I'll just oh, I see it. Put the altitude in reverse order. NGC 1907. I still am not seeing it in our stack. But we just did a 1931. So what I'll do is I'll edit that observation. And I'll just say, in the same frame, we caught NGC 1907 and IC0417, a cluster and H2 region. And we'll snap a snapshot of this. I like this idea of keeping them on the screen. You know, it just worked out so much better now to be able to go back to that. In the old days, it would have disappeared and I wouldn't have been able to get back to it. So that's sad. So let's stop live stacking now and go back to see what you're saying. The Fly Nebula, yes. I'm sorry, Spider Nebula. give it an auto stretch. Oh, Ezra, I should have listened to you first before I stopped auto stretching. All right, we'll catch you next time on that. Thanks, Ezra, for watching my back there. All right, next stop for us is NGC 2420. NGC 2420. This is an open cluster in Gemini. It's called the Twinkling Comet Cluster, for who knows what reason. We'll put us back on 3-second exposures and go back up to a gain of 400. Oh, it took our... We had deep sky image annotation on. I'm not seeing the cluster there, so let's plate solve just in case. How are we doing on our time, guys? If we're going to get 37 objects in, let's see. In 120 minutes, 120 divided by 37, is that about 3 minutes per object? Oh my goodness, look at the sky cam. Woohoo! We should be looking right at the moon here. Boy, it's the wonder of electronic, right there's the cluster. It's the wonder of EAA that this is not like destroying our view, isn't it? Because we have this sharp-eyed camera. This is a beautiful, a beautiful little cluster there. Look at that. And this is NGC 2420. So again, it's called the Twinkling Comet Cluster. And to get oriented in the sky, you can see we're just off to the left of Gemini. We're very close to the moon. Let's get that angular distance just only 29 degrees away from the moon. This is a good time, by the way, to show you the building where I'm sitting. Right here is the building where I'm sitting, and I'm in that corner office. This is the observatory, so you can see I'm about 200 feet away from the wall of the observatory. That's my truck, and if we could see a live view here in the Stellarium Planetarium, that's where my truck is parked tonight, exactly. Okay, so again, we're going to show chart here and get aligned again. 2420 show chart. Okay, so we're almost to the meridian, looking almost due south at the Twinkling Comet Cluster. Does it look like a twinkling comet to you guys? Twinkling Comet Cluster, NGC 2420. NGC 2420. Page 75. It's a beautiful yet subtle open cluster. Its round fuzzy form looks like a comet just beginning to shine. Very rich cluster and a delight to see with larger apertures. Ghostly round glow of largely uniform light, like a tailless comet that gets gradually brighter in the middle. With a vertivision, some 24 suns of between 11th and 12th magnitude can be seen forming a net around a dazzling array of dimmer suns at its core. It's as if these fainter central jewels have been dredged up from the depths of space. At 72 power, the cluster looks more fractured. Countless dimmer suns also waft in and out of view Indeed, the cluster is very rich of stars, having more than 300 members populating a mere 6 arc minutes of the sky. Quite stunning. Quite stunning, he says. It is stunning, isn't it? So we'll say some 300 members according to O'Meara, but most are faint 11th and 12th magnitude. The twinkling comet cluster. Oh, that's a fun name. The twinkling comet. And invisible to our naked eye view, you know, because we see up to about, what, 5 point something, maybe 6 magnitude under completely dark skies. We have moonlight and city light pollution here tonight, but using EAA we can make this out, and it's actually quite stunning, to quote O'Meara. You're on the scope cam. Oh, are you sure? I think we're back now. Clusters usually show up even the bright moon. Change the text. Ah, the text, yes. I'm not sure we're going to be able to keep up with that. We're trying to go too fast, aren't we? This is NGC 2420. Thanks, Azray. Stunning. All right, well, let's head to the next one, which is, let me just do another run here and also altitude. The next on the list is NGC 2126. So let's slew to that. NGC 2126. I'm going to show chart, and this cluster is in the northwest. It's a pretty sparse cluster, it looks like. NGC 2126. 2126. Maybe if I start doing it right there, it'll show up better. Oops, what did I just do? Oh, why do I keep doing that? NGC 2126. So we're looking just off of Auriga now in the direction of Ursa Major. Anybody see it? I'm not seeing it. So let's bite solve. So this is open cluster night. We're going to try to see as many open clusters as we can. It's kind of like marathon style. So we're not really live stacking, not really trying to dredge up a lot of nebulae, see all the hydrogen alpha regions very often, unless we just see that we're next to something, you know, quite, remarkable. Otherwise, we're just bouncing from one cluster to the next. And I joked when I first started, if you weren't on, that in a way, I hope that, I wish that I could give everybody one of those ice cream cluster flavors. Oh yeah, look at this. Wow. This is a huge cluster, I think. Or is that it in the middle? There it is. We just have some background stars that look really nice. So that's the cluster in the middle. It is NGC 2126. 2126. 2126 is on page 22. This is Stephen James O'Meara's book on the Herschel 400 list. 2126 is a dim and difficult open cluster in remote northern Auriga. Fortunately, a 6 magnitude star is superimposed on the dim haze, making it easy to locate, but it's very faint as a cluster. It's just an ill-defined fog of faint light, he said, in his smaller telescope. It's just a halo with a 6th magnitude star. You can see the 6th magnitude star there, the bright one. And he says if you use averted vision, you can perhaps see that something appears elliptical about the star. 40 stars, 13th magnitude. He says it's a bear to resolve in a small telescope. Unless you have sufficient aperture, expect to just see a smidgen of diffuse light kissing the star. Don't breathe on your eyepiece. I'm so thankful tonight, God. Thank you, Lord, that we have an 11-inch telescope, because we dialed this right up, didn't we? Look at that. We don't even need to live stack this. It's beautiful. Thank you for this 11-inch aperture, Lord. We can even see some double stars here. Okay, so we're going to do the observation on this. And O'Meara uses a 4-inch scope. I think it's a 4-inch refractor, though, to be fair. He said this one was all but invisible. But in our 11-inch, we could easily resolve what looked like all 50 members. The 6th magnitude star stood out. Some of those are faint, aren't they? You know, open clusters are kind of just a grouping of stars that are traveling together, and we don't really know much about why they form. Some people think that maybe open clusters formed maybe later through, like, I guess in star nurseries, and began traveling together. And some people say that at first they carry with them gases and hydrogen clouds of all kinds, you know, the different gaseous clouds, and those clouds blow off after a while, and then these open clusters are left just like this one, with just this grouping of stars, but it's kind of left behind its star nursery. I guess it's possible that some of those gases are maybe blown away by the stars themselves, the ultraviolet light, you know, kind of bleaching out, and the solar wind of the stars, you know. But we don't see very many open clusters with that gaseous light, do we? And the ones we do see with clouds or nebulosity around them, like M45, the famous Pleiades cluster, just in the last 20 to 30 years, spectroscopy has taught us, photometry has taught us that that nebulous cloud wasn't the cloud that formed the Pleiades, but instead the Pleiades is passing through it. So we don't really know why these clusters travel together. All we know is when we're looking at this cluster, all these stars are roughly the same age. So we know they form together. And they're kind of young. They're like young when it comes to the apparent age of the rest of the universe. The apparent age of the rest of the universe being, apparently to us, it looks like 13.7 billion years old. These open clusters, the apparent age on these are just 200, 300 million years old. So they're kind of like youngsters traveling around exploring the galaxy together. And nobody knows for sure how many open clusters we have. A lot, you know, because we can't see through the whole Milky Way. Certainly, what would you guys say? How many would you guess? Hundreds and hundreds, or would it get up into thousands of open clusters? Many astronomers now believe that most stars were formed in open clusters. And like our sun, which is not a part of an open cluster, it broke away because of gravitational pull as the open cluster grew farther and farther apart. So they're kind of like a little enigma, huh? Well, we'll just push on now. This is 2126. Let's push on to 2304. 2304. Ray, thank you so much. Ray is asking, if you're here, would you please subscribe and click a thumbs up? And that will really help get this up in people's, radar when they search for things. Like if they search for astronomy and you liked this, maybe, who knows? It might be that this will come up in their search. Look at us, we're almost aimed straight up, aren't we? And sure enough, if we show you the stellarium, the planetarium software, sure enough, we're pointed almost straight up. This is NGC 2304, Malat 55. And the zenith, I keep a little Z here at the top of the sky. And I don't know if you can see it where you are, but there's a little Z there, and that shows it straight up. Well, this particular cluster is at about 67 degrees, and this would be due south. So it's a little bit west of due south. So let's see how we did here. Let's back off to full frame. Not seeing it there. So we'll just do that plate solve and make sure that we're looking at the right part of the sky. This plate solving is just ninja magic, isn't it? It really lets you be just a little bit lazier with your polar alignment. Now, we aligned the scope a year ago when we put it in the observatory, and I haven't checked the alignment for the last year because plate solving just spoils us. But I suppose once a year we should check the alignment of the scope. Look, we were a little bit off. Now that we plate solved, we'll be able to use this deep sky image annotation, and it says right there is the cluster. But I think it's off. Sure enough, the plate solving is off. And that's because it makes its judgment before the correction. So what we're going to do is, while we look at this, we're going to plate solve only. But right here you can see is the cluster. It is very faint. Wow. I mean, it looks to me that there are no bright stars in that cluster. This is 2304. NGC 2304. 2304 is on page 72. It's a very small and very dim open cluster. Think very small and faint as you hunt. It's but a glint of ill-defined haze stuck to a 10 arc-minute long chain of 10th and 12th magnitude suns, which is oriented northeast to southwest. The cluster is extremely small, 3 arc-minutes, and dim, with its brightest stars shining only at magnitude 11.5. The other members are mere suggestions in his 4-inch. At 72 power, the cluster is a breath of starlight, with perhaps only half a dozen or so stars sparkling in and out of view. But we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, there are probably 30 stars there. Now, where is this chain that he's talking about? Once again, here's the cluster. Now that we've plate solved this new location, look at our deep sky image annotation, and it nails it. So that's the trick, is to do another solve once you get to your final correction. Where's this chain of stars he's talking about? I can see this arc. Maybe here. This must be the chain of stars he's talking about. And then here's the cluster, and then the arc goes on. See how those are all sort of bluish, faint bluish stars? Pretty young. All right, so we're going to go over here and do our observation on this NGC 2304. And our 11-inch, we could make out, I would say that looks like at least 30 faint 12th magnitude stars. Nothing bright at all. Most were bluish, young. It's just open cluster night. Boy, I'm going to turn on my heater here, guys. Let's look at the temperature out there. It's just 41 degrees. It's not bad, but just a little bit of chill on my feet in here. Turn on my little space heater. All right, let's head to the next, which is 2120. 2129. NGC 2129. I should be changing this title here. 2129. Scope didn't move a lot, did it? There's the moon. You can see in our SkyCam's field of view, that moon looks like this amazing searchlight beacon, doesn't it? And yet, if we zero in, there's this cluster. Bam, right in the center. This is a beautiful one. Look at these two little headlights looking at us. (2129). (2129). 34. Page 34. These books have gone up in price. I noticed they're like $100 a piece now. They weren't that much when I bought them. 2129. It's a bright but small open cluster. A few of its brightest stars can be seen in binoculars, but you'll need a telescope to recognize the cluster. At 4 inches, at first, all you can see is the double star, with magnitude 7.5 primary and a magnitude 8 companion. A vertivision will show these stars superimposed on small round haze of suns. Isn't it interesting? If you look very closely, one of those is a little bit orangish. Now I've wondered about that. Why do you get that in the middle of a cluster if it was formed together? And what I've been told is that the cluster picks up, stars along its way sometimes. So that orange one could be picked up with the others. A dim glow of unresolved stars seemingly lie in wait behind the cluster's brightest members, which shine at 10th magnitude. Larger telescopes will reveal more than 70 stars, only 6 arc minutes across. Boy, 70. So that must be including this entire area. We might need to live stack in order to see all 70 of these members. But I bet we could see 50 or 60. Most seemed bluish, but there was at least one that was orange-ish. Dim, with an apparent double in the middle of 8th, see, 7th and 8th magnitude. What was the shiny spots around the zoom in? I don't know what that would have been, Ken. I think all just stars, nothing out of the ordinary. Wiki show like some nebula within it. Well, how about that? So this is 2129. NGC 2129 wiki. Oh my goodness, you're right. Look at that. Is this a Hubble view? No fair. We need a Hubble, guys. There's just no doubt about it. We need a Hubble. SDSS. That's like a something like a survey, something deep space survey telescope. Huh. Boy, those are sure pretty, aren't they? Well, we could live stack it for a minute and see what we pick up. You guys up for that, or do you want to stay with the quick survey? NGC 2129. When you first start, it shows you whatever you've live stacked last. Azray says, let's move on. Look like bright moons. I don't know. I don't think so, Ken. Ken says yes. Okay, so let's do this. And then this to satisfy Ray. Then this. And then move this out some. They do show up, you're right. They have some nebulosity around them. Look at that. We're already seeing it. They've got some fuzzy little I'm gonna sneeze on camera. So sorry. Told you my feet were getting cold. Okay, that's 60 seconds, but you can already see that we're gonna pick up a kind of a glimmer around them. A little bit out of the ordinary. Okay, so you guys are saying move on. So let's move on, but thanks, Ray. Ray says, bless you. I'm so sorry. I thought about trying to find my mute button. All right, so the next object, let's do the run again. Now when I do the run, I think I'm messing up our order here. So that's out of order with what you guys are seeing in the description that I posted. Let's go to 2395. Stop live stacking first. Go back to 3 seconds at gain of 400. And now let's slew to it and show chart. We didn't have to go very far. there is a nebula in this that we should pick up. I think that might be it right there in the middle. Right here, is it maybe? That's SkyCam, wow. I think this might be the cluster right here, we'll see. So the other kind of clusters you hear about a lot are globular clusters. And they're very different than open clusters. The globular clusters, we'll do another night, they are like this glob of stars. And yeah, not much movement to have to do there. They are just the opposite. They're like apparent age. If you look at the universe as being 13.7, their apparent age would be like 13 billion years old. We probably only have 100 to 150 whoop, let me stop that again. 20 NGC 2395. We probably only have 100 to 150 globular clusters in our whole galaxy. And the globular clusters just look like globes of stars, just like they're named well. They are orbiting the Milky Way like a swarm of bees, and they actually aren't much in the disk like we and most of the other traditional stars are. Instead, what they do is they go out around the Milky Way in all different patterns. So they're just like hornets, you know, circling around the unfortunate guy who kicked their nest. And globular clusters are elderly, and so their stars tend to be yellowish and reddish and 13 billion years old apparent age. So the open clusters are kind of the young whippersnappers flying through space, you know, with reckless abandon. And they're mostly in the disk, like we are, of the Milky Way. But the globular clusters are passing through the disk constantly, and sometimes even right through the core, where they just get attacked by the gravity of the core and the black hole there. So globulars or globs, there are only 100 to 150 of them in the whole Milky Way, it's estimated. Whereas these guys, there are lots of these guys, and it's estimated that many of our suns formed in these. So right here in the middle, $23.95, sure enough. $23.95. $23.95 on 71. A dim, low surface brightness open cluster under a dark, dark sky. It's a pale elliptical glow, as seen with averted vision. Very loose and scattered congregation of stars, 10th magnitude and fainter, about 30 suns in elliptical form. Stars are mixed brightness, dim trapezoid shape clustering of faint sun forms what could be considered the core, maybe 50 stars in a 15 arc minute wide gathering. 50 stars, 15 arc minute wide. around 50 stars, 15 arc minutes wide extent. Faint trapezoid O'Meara. I feel like I should credit him because I'm using some of his. See what he means by elliptical. We can tell which stars are part of the cluster by measuring that photometry and also by measuring the red shift of the stars, because the stars that are traveling together have the same shift or non-shift, and stars that are traveling at us have a different red shift. You know, the red shift is kind of what we observe when a car horn is coming toward us, like the ambulance that goes doo 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 doo, and when it passes, it goes doo 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 doo. It fades in frequency. Well, the light does that too. It shifts toward the red when it's headed toward us and shifts the other direction when it's not. So we can kind of see which stars are traveling together by measuring the shift with spectroscopy. And so we can kind of identify these stars are all traveling together. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? Now, I'm not seeing that nebulosity that we saw over here. Oh, it's just outside our frame, maybe. Let's see. No, there's 2395 there. So it should be in our frame. Let's see. From 2395, there should be a line of 4 stars on one of our long edges. Wow, I'm not seeing it. Oh, I think it's going to be right here. Maybe? Oh, there it is, up there. See it? Up here at the top. So we're kind of getting 2 for the price of 1 here. There's that nebula starting to come into view with live stacking. On a moonlit night, we're still able to bring that in. Electronically-assisted astronomy rocks. So there's that nebula. What is the name of that? The Medusa Nebula, SH2-274. So I'm going to go back over here and edit our observation. If I can get my windows all figured out here. The Medusa Nebula wafted into view like a, what is that? We always try to remember on Star Trek. What is that called? You're right, Ezra. It was Medusa. Klingon bird of prey. Off the port bow. Beautiful hydrogen alpha region. We've got everything turned up. The sky glow a little bit too loud. It's a bit of a dance, isn't it? Trying to make the sky black but the Medusa Nebula red, and do this in 100% moonlight. Only through EAA. All right, let's save that after 6 minutes and head on to the next. oh, stop live stacking. The next cluster here is said to be the NGC 2355. NGC 2355. If I were on the ball, I would go down here every time and say that. And then I would say this. I think we're already there, right here. Right there. Yeah. Boy, it's a new day in astronomy, isn't it? I mean, imagine the old days, you wouldn't have any idea what you're looking at. Ken Allen, thanks for appreciating the Klingon bird of prey. You would have no idea what you're looking at for sure. You might maybe looked it up in a sky atlas. I mean, we could, let's see, we need to show chart and it'll synchronize it. We can go in here and try to compare the look of the stars, you know. That'd be the only way. But as you can see, it's a bit of a trip trying to do that. Whereas with EAA and this deep sky image annotation, you can always be sure of what you're looking at now. Right there it is. This is 2355. It's another dim, low surface brightness open cluster. Seemingly rich assortment of very dim suns. Some central condensation, essentially a low surface brightness patch of nervous starlight. That's a good quote. A flurry of dim suns with similar brightness, 13th magnitude and fainter. Outer flanks are ragged and dim. The core also has a sinuous string of stars running through it, north to south. Okay, so see, he's talking about this sinuous string of stars running through it, north to south. Have to say, it's amazing what O'Meara can point out while observing through a 4-inch refractor. We saw his sinuous string of stars and the 30 to 50 faint 13th mag suns. Bet on a dark night, no moon would be really sweet to see these. I think you're right, Ken. I mean, we're basically seeing the structure, but especially like, for instance, as Ray pointed out an object or two ago, the nebulosity around those stars. We weren't seeing that till we stopped and live stacked, and that would really show up better on a dark night. You're right. Okay, we stayed at 3 seconds on this one, so we're off to see the next without even a pause. 1857. 1857. Okay, so it looks like it's right here. I think these clusters are beautiful. I know that some astronomers don't get as big of a kick out of them, but I'm not one of them. 1857. It was a good year. 24. Dim open cluster near 5th magnitude. Ten arc minutes across, a mere 10 arc minutes, a tough catch, appearing as a faint fog of light surrounding a 7.5 magnitude star. So that's this star right in the middle. Bright central star whose light overpowers the dimmer members. A pair of 11th magnitude stars can be seen immediately to the southeast. That would be these two. About 24 dim suns pop in and out of view with averted vision, forming an irregular skirt of inconceivably dim light. This must be his irregular skirt. Broadens before it abruptly ends. Yeah. The notion that this is a cluster is all but lost at high magnification in a small telescope. The cluster has only about 40 members, so larger telescopes will glorify the view, mainly by bringing out the faint background stars in the Milky Way. So 40 members. 40 members, all extremely faint. Broadens out, then abruptly ends. Omira. How in the world did William Herschel pick this out with his homemade 18-inch telescope? I don't know. New moon is the weekend of the 18th to 20th. Well, we can hope that we have a clear night there, can't we? Don't we? Won't we? All right. Next object looks like it's NGC 2194. 2194. Didn't move very much, did it? $21.94. Wow. I bet that's it right here. Right here, I bet. Oh, right here, I bet. It's right here. Shining at magnitude 8.5 may be a challenge for small telescope users in light-polluted areas. Under dark skies, it's a dim glow in a 4-inch. Quite impressive in a large telescope. Dim, round glow. 9 arc minutes wide. Looks like a faint comet with no central condensation or tail. Elongated E-shaped core. E-shaped. Appears very mottled and has fuzzy and spiked edges. A comet having a bad hair day. A comet having a bad hair day. With averted vision, an elongated E-shaped core appears weakly branded on a dim background haze. E-shape. guess. Is that it? That's the bottom of the E. That's the middle. And that's the top. And then this is the stem of the E, maybe. If you count, there would be 200 stars, 13th magnitude or fainter. Wow. A bad hair day. A comet with a bad hair day. O'Meara called this a comet with a bad hair day. He could see the letter E among these 200 suns. I mean, they do get very faint there, don't they? Look how many there are. Lots. Looks like February 20th, next new moon, dark night. Yes, the 20th is new moon. That's beautiful. We would have never seen it with just normal observing, would we? This is 2194. 2194. It's pretty impressive, actually. All right, next object is 1664 and the constellation Auriga. (1664). Oh, down here, I bet. Who knows what shape you'll see here? A little Big Dipper? He'll come up with something. 1664. Why am I not finding this? 1664. It's not here. 1664 is not here. Was this the one that we added a while ago? Show chart. Kite cluster. Has an H number. How could it not be here? 1644, but not 1664. How can this be? Could his book have a typo? No. NGC 1664 on Herschel 400 list. Right there it is. 1664. Huh. Not in his book. At least not in the index. Anyway, it's the kite cluster. It lies at, it's 15 arc minutes wide, lies at a distance of surface brightness 13th, unknown distance. So what do you make of it? This is a mystery. Looks like a stingray. I'm with you, Ricky. I saw the stingray too. A little Big Dipper. Yeah, and see that? That's the handle, and then this is the bowl. Yep, that's 1664 for sure. Well, I can't explain why it's not in his book, but we're just going to do the observation and move on. So we're going to say, seemed to be missing strangely from O'Meara's book. Looked to us like a tiny Big Dipper. Oxymoron, I know. Oxymoron. I know. Let's see. Ricky thought it looked more like a stingray. At least 100 suns. All very faint. "42 light years away." I'm sorry, 4,200 light years away. "4,200 light years away, according to ASRAE. Start with the Star Trek analogies. Stay with the Star Trek analogies. All right, next object is NGC 2324. NGC 2324. Wow, we only have 25 minutes left. We have not done 37 objects. I am sorry to say. We got to step it up. Where's the cluster here? Is this it right here, maybe? Boy, that would be super hard to pick out. I mean, that would be, I would have never seen that. I would have never noticed that in a million years. If I were just panning the sky with binoculars, that just looks like the background to me. Sure enough, that's it. "100 faint stars," and we mean faint. Looked like the background. 23, 24. Small, low surface brightness, open cluster. Small diffuse haze. Looks like a dozen suns to him. Largely uniform glow. Look for a nice arc of suns at the northeastern edge. Yep, see it? Another bright stud near the western edge. Yep. The remaining stars seem to dangle between these stars to the south, making the cluster appear like a dew-spangled cobweb. I'm not seeing that. Many of these dimmer suns are in wavy rows. How did he see that? The cluster has more than 130 stars. Wavy rows. I suppose this is a wavy road, wavy row, and maybe that's a wavy row. But here's that arc he talked about. NGC 2324. Do we still have you on scope cam? So sorry, Azray. Thanks. So here's the cluster, and here's the arc he's talking about. There's the arc of stars. And then he says these are wavy rows. I guess that's true, isn't it? Boy, it's a faint cluster. We would never have picked it up. Ricky said, "Doug!" Trying to get my attention. So sorry, Ricky. Oh, that must have gotten on your guys' nerves. Okay, here we go at NGC 1750. NGC 1750. $17.50. Ricky. What do you think? Is this it here in the middle? This loose? It's pretty loose. "21 minutes left." Yep, this is it. Right here must be it. 1750. O'Meara's picture in the back of the book has him with a little dog. That must be his observing dog. 1750. Uh-oh. It's not here either. What's going on? Maybe I'm not looking at the right index, but I'm not seeing 1750 here. To be fair, he has them kind of confusingly arranged in the index. I mean, the index is topical, like the galaxies are in one place, and then he's got one place where all the NGC numbers are together, and 1750 is not there. So we're just going to add an observation. And we're going to say this loose cluster barely looked like a cluster to us. Sparse and scattered. We couldn't find this NGC number in O'Meara's book. Let's go show chart. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Just a scattering. Boy, you could put a gun to my head and I still wouldn't figure out what that was. Look, there's another cluster here, he says. 1746. Oh my goodness. You gotta be kidding me. I think we're awful, but I think this is probably one of them. This is another. There we go. So that's 1758, 1746, and 1750. Whoa. So 1750 is here, and that's a separate cluster? Wow. Actually, not one, but 3 separate clusters. (1750), 1746, and 1758. Weird. Herschel must have had a good imagination. That's right. It's a hat trick of clusters. Soccer fan there. All right, next is NGC 2186. 15 minutes to go. Woohoo! Hurry. 2186. Looks like this might be it. Extremely small, huh? I'm with you, Azra. I think Herschel had a good imagination. Just look at the spray pattern of a 410 shotgun. Each cluster is a shot. Yeah, that's right. Oh, XX Lumpy, XX CNC, good to have you here. You're very kind. He says, love this channel. Thanks for all the content, amazing views, and above all else, knowledge. Oh my goodness. That's encouraging, but I don't think I deserve that. You have a floor heater in the 40s there in Louisville. Yes, that's right. Stu, it's good to have you here, Stu. Welcome. Great to have you aboard. You're here for the last 15 minutes at least. We're just marveling, Stu, at how small this cluster is. This is 2186 here. $21.86. This is what you get with the Herschel list. You get all sizes, don't you? And Stu, we felt like on 2 different occasions, super small, super sparse. It felt like on 2 different occasions that O'Meara didn't have the NGC number listed. 2186 on page 28. Small and very dim open cluster. Challenge to find in a small telescope. Only appears as a thin, round haze. Small and difficult. Averted vision required. Only 30 stars. That's all he says. 30 stars. But at least we could pick them up. Even on a moonlit night. But man, you stop and think there's not much there, guys. Look. Stu says, Herschel eyesight gene must be a good one. Yeah. I hate Clavin Lim says, no fair, you do EAA at F2. That's like a cheat code. I admit it, you're right. We're spoiled, aren't we? But you're part of it now, so we're doing this as a team, right? Wow, now look down here. That almost looks like another cluster, doesn't it? Wonder if that's 2180. Yeah, I bet that is. Yep. So see, if we were to have had 11-inch RASA with Herschel, we could have found some of these too. Wonder if 2180 is on our list. I don't see it. Not here. So I'll just add it here. NGC 2180 was in the same frame and seemed a bit grander. Andy says perverted vision. No, averted vision, Andy. That's where you look away from the object, but you look at it with your peripheral vision. It's supposed to be better because the optical nerve is in exactly the right place. I guess I should say the wrong place. So if you're looking directly at it, the optical nerve takes away some of the rods and cones. Yeah, F2 rocks, Azray says. You've got a 8 and 11 both, I think, if I remember right, Azray. Have to see again on the new moon night. Actually, Ken, we're seeing all of these clusters just fine. It's about the only thing you can keep seeing when you're this close to the moon. The next object is NGC 2301. Would you recommend a reducer on a 6-inch f4, or is that crazy talk? I wouldn't mess with it. I just enjoy the f4. There's not that much difference between f2 and f4. Maybe like one f-stop on a camera. So Andy says, oh, okay, misheard. That's right, 8 and 11. A RASA 8 and a RASA 11, Asray has. Oh, this is a nice one. NGC 2301. $2301. $55. A surprisingly bright and obvious object. Shining at 6th magnitude, it is a stunning gem, perhaps the finest open cluster in Monoceros for small telescope users. It can look like a wavy line centered on a stunning double star. Pardon us while we realigned here. Telescopically, the cluster lies almost exactly on the galaxy's mid-plane, and as a consequence is seen against a rich stellar backdrop. But here's deep sky image annotation right there in the middle, lest you doubted. It's immediately striking in form and bountiful in stars. A beautiful string of stars can be seen oriented north to south. So that's these. The southern half of which is composed of 4 roughly 9th magnitude stars that form a brilliant arc. That's this. With imagination, I see a mythical dragon in flight. Where does he get all this? So I have dubbed it Hagrid's Dragon. At 72 power, so dramatic. At 72 power, the cluster's core is a tight bundle of 5 suns. Yep, we're seeing it. Let me zoom in a little more here. Here's this 5 suns in the middle that he saw. With a bright double star at the eastern end. Yep, here's the bright double star. The northern extension is sharply linear with a double star at the northern tip. Does he mean this? I bet he means this. The more southerly one has a warm hue. I don't know about the warm hue. Bright and striking. Lines and a bright 5-star core. Almira. This one is a joy to behold. It is, isn't it? It almost looks like something, I don't know. Look at the dragon. I see it now. There's the dragon's head. Oh my goodness. And see, here's a wing, and there's another wing. I can't believe he put that in our heads. And sure enough, we could see it. Hagrid's dragon. Who is Hagrid? Almira called it a dragon. And lo and behold, Almira called it a dragon, and lo and behold, we could see it. Scope cam 2301. Sorry about that. 2301. 2301. Andy said, I see the dragon. String of blue stars. Ken, very cool. Yup. That's awesome. Hagrid's dragon. 4 minutes. You know what I wonder? I wonder if why don't we finish out by seeing M45 just because it'll show the difference between, we're working through the Herschel list, which is kind of like a level 301 list, and the Messier list is like the place where most people start. But the Messier list has the biggest and brightest. And that's because, you know, Messier was observing in light polluted Paris. And so he could only see the biggest and brightest things. But whatever, 30 years later, Herschel was in England in some darker skies with a larger telescope. I think Messier's telescope was a 3-inch refractor that he had made by himself, if I remember right. Very, very early kind of scene. And Herschel perfected it and made this 18-inch, among other things. And so now let's go see a cluster that, the kind of which that, let's finish up with this, that Messier would see. The whole cluster is the whole screen. This whole thing is M45, in other words. The entire screen is filled with one cluster. Typically you'll see people call this like a little dipper. Here's the handle, and here are the 4 stars. And then here's the front of the dipper. It's actually the logo on the Subaru car. It's got these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's what most people see when they look naked eye. So you can see this cluster easily naked eye. Some people believe that this was a 7th star that you could see if you were sharp-eyed, and maybe it's dimmed over the years. Most people can't see it naked eye. So that's why it's called 7 Sisters. Pleiades, M45. And this is located off of our west horizon. And you can see it's not very high. It's at 26 degrees. That'd be a good one to end on, huh? Looks like a duck. Is that the last one? A duck. That's right. It would look like a duck, Ezra. I remember. And Ken says he saw a duck too. Like looking through milk bottles. Azrael looks like a number 8. Is that was back on the previous object, 2186 or 2301 or whatever, 2301. Anyway, we're going to end with the Pleiades, gang. Thank you so much for spending this 2 hours with us. I don't know how many we did here. Let's see. Let's see if we can figure out how to tell. Observed, yes. And then we'll run this. 17 is what we got done. So we had 21 to go to get 37 objects. On the other hand, we normally get through about 9 objects, so we literally doubled the number of objects. Let's come back to this again and see if we can get into that 3 or 4 minute rhythm. I think part of it is looking them up in Omir's book and reading about them. That slows it down. The plate solving slows us down a little bit. I could do another polar alignment so we wouldn't have to plate solve as often. Ken, thanks for your encouragement. Thank you, Azray, for being a part of this. A little bit different night. We didn't take as much time on each object, but we did cover more ground, more sky. 17 objects in 2 hours. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks to God for making all these. And thank you all for being a part. We had 10 or 15 folks the whole night long, and astronomy is a team sport. Thanks so much. God bless you all. We'll say good night for now. Thank you, Ricky.